Joseph, talk to me a little bit about what are some common misconceptions about cybersecurity that you're encountering today?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think the first and biggest is a misconception that's been sort of intentionally made popular by certain education actors. And it's this idea that there is a list of certs that guarantees a job, or there's a certain cert that guarantees a job, or that there's a cert that you won't get a job if you don't have, or any of that sort of idea. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certs that I really like. I actually recently got the CISA Plus because I was telling all of our junior analysts they should get it. And so I wanted to go get it. And I really, really like that one. I was actually very impressed. I'm not a big CompTIA guy most of the time, but I really like that one. But I think that a lot of, especially, and you see this a lot with security educators who have never actually worked in security, who've like, they've been an educator their entire career and never an analyst, never a DFIR person. They'll just tell you like, oh, here's the list of certs you need to get. And that list of certs means you are now good at security. And I think that really intimidates a lot of people because most folks don't have $5, $6, $7,000 to drop on certifications to start their career. Most folks are getting into cybersecurity out of a job that didn't, a lot of people are getting into it for economic reasons. It didn't necessarily pay well, didn't have a lot of educational opportunities. And so this idea, it's sort of like when someone's like, well, how do I become a lawyer from a blue collar background? It's like, oh, it's easy. Just get into Yale and preferably on a scholarship, have your parents pay for it, and then you'll be set. No problem. What's the issue? And it's the same sort of mentality of just like, oh, if you have a huge amount of power, privilege, and wealth, there's no challenge. It's like, yeah, but that's not why they're asking.
Nice. Or you could just go and watch Better Call Saul. I'm pretty sure he went to like American Samoa University and,
Yes.
nights and
I love
weekends.
that show, man. I have to be careful rewatching because like it affects my relationships, but it's such a good show. It just bums me out, but it's really good.
Well, that's a good pivot because I noticed you posted something on LinkedIn about you diving in, and I feel like this is like an OCD moment for Joseph Perry. You dove into Taylor Swift's new music, and all of your instant response plans became teen angst. What's up with that?
Yeah, so it's one of those that I do a lot of documentation as part of my job. Is when you get into the senior roles, you get into leadership roles, a lot of your job is just writing stuff down. This is how I do it. This is and a lot of times you're writing down a technique that you mastered years ago and haven't necessarily used in great depth since. And so you're doing research, you're actively looking things up, and you're making sure like I'm not giving somebody out of date information. I'm not. And and as you're doing that, it's pretty natural to have music playing in the background. I'm a big fan of having like lo-fi music. But after a while, kind of having the same tunes repeat over and over again can get kind of jarring and frustrating. And I've never made a secret, I've always been a really huge fan of Taylor Swift. I think she's a really underrated songwriter. I think she's a really talented person. She's one of the great music. She's actually hugely influential in a bunch of different kinds of music, and people don't have any idea about it. But not to get on a huge Taylor Swift rant, but as I was listening to her latest album, I was kind of going back to her old, for those who don't know, Taylor Swift has been in a really interesting sort of like musical legal triumph, has been re-releasing a bunch of her old songs as her version after a conflict with a predatory label. And I'm not going to go too far into the details of that because that's not what we're here to talk about. And so I was listening to it and I was really engaging and just enjoying it. And it's very lyrical music. And as I was typing, I was specifically in this case, I was talking about how to deal with unsatisfactory results coming out of tabletop exercises and purple teams, how to actually perform remediations, how to basically convince clients that remediations are worthwhile, all that sort of thing. And as I was typing it up, I just started noticing, I was like, all of this is talking about like people not paying attention to the things they need to pay attention to and not doing their part and not work. I'm just like, this isn't wrong. It's not bad, but there's a decidedly angsty tone to the way that I'm writing these documents. And it's just sort of one of those things where I was laughing about it. And I try and LinkedIn is just full of maniacs. And so I try and make my LinkedIn at least a little bit self-effacing and funny. And so, yeah, that's where that one came from.